Do everyone accept recording?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're recording now. This is our Empathy Cafe to talk about XR co-founder Roger Hallam's comments about the Holocaust. So we're going to be using the empathy circle process for this discussion, and maybe we can just start by going around introducing ourselves. You know, just your name, where you're from, and what if you're part of Extinction Rebellion, you know, what part of Extinction Rebellion you're from. Hey, Eric. So we're just starting to introduce ourselves. My name is Edwin Rutch. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm part of the Extinction Rebellion Empathy Circle work group. And Carolina, would you like to just say introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Karolina Kubiak. I'm calling from from Gdańsk, north of Poland, Central Europe. I am a member of local Extinction Rebellion group, and I'm also part of Empathy Circle work group. And lately, right now I'm joining the international support team in region culture group.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bill?
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm a retired special education teacher here in San Francisco Bay Area in California in the US. And I've been taking the XR facilitator training, and I'm a member of the Empathy Tent team.
And Eva?
Hi, I'm calling from Toronto, Eva. I am mostly interested in Empathy Circle, actually. And XR is something that I would like to learn more. Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah, great. So glad you're here to join us.
Thanks.
Kevin, another person near Toronto?
Yes, my name is Kevin. I'm from Guelph and early follower of XR. My interest is in transformative governance and the connection between Extinction Rebellion and hopefully the Indigenous people of Canada in the future.
Okay, well, thanks. Eric just dropped out, so he's having some trouble connecting. He was with us at the last one of these on the same topic last week, so hopefully he'll be able to pop back in. So we're going to be using the empathy circle process, which everyone is more or less familiar with, but I just recap the very minimal instructions. So in this process, one person is going to be the speaker, and they're going to select who they're going to speak to, who's going to be the empathic listener or active listener. And you'll be able to speak on the topic of your thoughts on Roger Hallam's Holocaust comments or whatever is alive for you. And you share an idea or two, and then you pause and you let the active listener reflect back their understanding of what you have said to your satisfaction. You want to be able to have a sense that the listener understood you to your satisfaction. Then if they have understood you, you continue sharing some more. If they don't understand you, you can say what you were saying again, maybe in different words, and then they'll reflect back until you feel like you've really been understood. We're going to have 5-minute turns. I don't know if someone would like to anyone want to take time?
Sure.
Bill? What?
Sure.
Bill's willing to take time. So we'll have 5-minute turns, and then sort of a couple of tips as the listener. You're just wanting to reflect back your understanding of what the person has said. You're not wanting to put your own ideas or questions or comments into the reflection. When it's your turn to speak, you can say anything you want. There's no political correctness. Say whatever you want, and you will be heard to your satisfaction. And that's sort of, am I missing anything important there? Anybody, Bill or Carolina?
No, I just say that the 5 minutes is a soft 5 minutes. I'll kind of, I don't want to interrupt, so I'll kind of hold the phone up and, finish up your last thoughts. And
okay.
And obviously, to emphasize, let's emphasize that when you are reflecting do not judge, do not refrain from any judgment, from any suggestion, dispute. You will have your time when will be your turn, when your turn will be. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So we can begin. Perhaps Eva or Kevin would like to start. Select one of us, since we, Carolina or Bill, because we've done this a lot, so we can sort of model it, and we can begin. So
you're gonna make me go first, Idra.
If you'd like, you're just speaking, and just select who you'd like to speak to.
Okay,
Kevin?
I'll speak to Edwin.
Okay, I'm listening.
I don't know how to start. I believe that for XR to continue to grow internationally, I believe in that the movement needs to move mass numbers of people in the context of spiral dynamics. I believe that, it to move so many people into consciousness, it takes a strategy that like what Roger mentioned. I believe in that in the context of, for Extinction Rebellion to grow internationally. I think that it's important to have that type of context. And when I watched how quickly Roger was called out on those statements, for me, I felt hurt in that I believe that, that having that topic untouchable allows and perpetuates it to genocide to continue today.
Okay, let me reflect that back what I'm hearing so far. So what I'm hearing is you see that you're wanting people's sort of awareness and consciousness to move to sort of higher levels, and you're using sort of the spiral dynamic model, which maybe not everyone's familiar with, but and that you, when you heard Roger talk about what he was saying, it sounds like you have some sort of understanding for what he said, but what really hurt you is how he was called out on it, and it's become an off topic, that you're not allowed to talk about this, and that sort of is disturbing, or you're concerned about that.
And yeah, in the context of 50 million, 75 million indigenous people were exterminated in the United States. Canada's history has residential schools and very similar actions against the indigenous people in Canada, and even Rwanda's genocide was 800,000 people in 3 months. And I after listening to all the after everything happening after Roger Hallam saying that, I've did some more research online, and from 2018, Eric Solheim, the UN's Secretary Executive, I think, on climate, was talking about climate change and all of the good work that's happening around the world in countries starting adaptation. And he referenced Rwanda and said, even Rwanda is doing such tremendous things after their genocide, of which in 3 months more people were exterminated than Hitler was able, at a greater rate than what Hitler was able to accomplish. And this is a statement made in 2018, and when that's all I can say.
So you're saying, what I was hearing is that there's been other genocides as well, in terms of the Native Americans, 50 million or something. I don't know how. And then and Rwanda as well. And I didn't quite understand that you're just saying that there are these other genocides that have happened as well that people are pointing out to, and even at higher rates than the Holocaust in Germany.
Yeah, it's terrible about the rates, of course, but I think that, you know, it's almost that because we're unable to reference the Holocaust in the same context of all other Holocausts, and instead the reaction comes to, you know, to shut down the discussion and to shut down the fact that the comment of Roger saying, you know, we're just doing the same fuckery, as part of my language, and the fact that we're unable to talk about that in the context of ongoing genocides today, it allows, I believe it allows genocide to continue.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is because like Roger, he couldn't express this with kind of a real backlash, and it's sort of shutting down dialogue, and you're not able to really talk about in that sense, talk about the genocides that are happening at this time in history too. So it's basically the shutting down of the dialogue that's upsetting.
Yeah,
so I think that was the time too. You're not able to see it, Bill. I think he's on a phone. He can't see, so that when you held it up. So I just might want to make. So okay, then it's my turn, and I'll speak to Carolina.
I'm listening.
Okay, so this is the third one of these dialogues we've done, and yeah, I'm just thinking I would have liked to have kind of spread more, because this basic dialoguing about kind of issues within XR, I would like to see this practice spread. So there's a constructive way to talk about these issues that arise. So a little bit of a disappointment that it hasn't spread more.
So you mentioned that this is the third meeting in a series of empathy circles about Roger Hallam comments, and you kind of feel kind of disappointed that it doesn't get that much attention because the topic is serious and you would like to make it more spread.
Yeah, I would like have had more support from kind of the XR, you know, more core groups. We've been talking with some of the people there, and you know, they want to do sort of these big circles, which is good, you know, restorative type circles. But I think that having some tools for XR for the members to talk constructively would be good to get this practice out. So there'd be, yeah, so these tools would be there.
So you think that you would like to have more support from other, so to speak, bodies of XR movement, because you believe that we provide sort of good tool for discussion, and there will be big restorative circles. They are preparation.
With Roger.
Yeah, with Roger. But you think that it would be good to discuss and use tools like empathy circle for discussion?
Yeah, I would like to see sort of like XR, everyone a mediator, sort of as a term, right? That an empathy circle is sort of a mediation process as well, and that to have that embedded within the whole system, within the whole movement, so that it's like there's more of a concerted, you know, from some of the leadership that, hey, we want everyone to become a mediator of sort, to learn these skills. And so that's sort of what I'm pushing for.
So you would like to see empathy circle as kind of common tool used inner element of every situation that involves debate or or conflict resolving
Mhm.
as a tool, kind of casual, regularly used method of talking,
Mhm.
and as a tool, it would make people, everyone, a mediator.
Right. That everyone can start an empathy circle. Like, here's a hot topic that's come up, some kind of a conflict. We can really have some tools for, talking it out and
Okay.
for more constructive dialogue. But from what I see, there's just a lot of name calling, a lot of, like Kevin is saying, a lot of shutting down. Instead of saying, okay, there's a problem here, let's have an open dialogue about it.
So you mean that if empathy circle method would be spread among XR activists, everybody could be a mediator, whatever happens. In every moment, in every second, everybody could start a circle, empathy circle, and transform the situation into more dialogic, more deliberative.
Exactly. So there's always new issues coming up, and this one is kind of just getting swept under the rug now. It's kind of it hasn't really been worked through. There's just a lot of loose ends, and It's almost like the news cycle has moved on, and this thing has been sort of left behind now.
So you feel like without public debate with everyone on this topic, it is like the topic is swept under the rig.
The rug.
Or the rug. I'm sorry. I know what it means, but sometimes my language skills are not good
and
enough.
just one correction, it's not a debate. An empathy circle is not a debate. It's a way to come to mutual understanding. So I don't want more debate. I want some real understanding, and then I feel heard. Yeah.
Okay, so you mean that this is the tool that let everybody to become mediator in every situation and help both or many sides of the conflict or any situation to feel heard and to listen to others.
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe I will choose Eva. Eva, would you listen to me? Okay.
I'll be happy to. I'll try my best.
Okay.
Carolina.
Well, English is not my native language, so sometimes I have problems with expressing myself or reflecting somebody.
Well, me too. English is not my first language too. So
okay, let's cope with it. Okay. I was thinking what Kevin was saying, and I agree with him. However, I can't accept two things. The language Roger Hallam used speaking about genocide and death, it's unacceptable for me. And second, the position he's taking without respecting others' activists. I feel like he doesn't respect other activists and the equal position of other activists, and I don't feel good with that. So two things: language he used and kind of putting himself upper than others.
Okay.
Would you try?
So Caroline, I hear you say you agree, although you agree with Kevin's ideas, there are two parts that you are not processing in a, you're not feeling so well, and you have something to say that you disagree with his ideas. And first one is the language Roger used while he was expressing his ideas about Holocaust and his ideas about empathy circles setting. And the second was his second part you didn't agree really was the position he's taking. That feeling, I guess, you have that he really doesn't seem to be respecting other activists.
Yes, one correction. I suppose Roger Hallam doesn't know much about empathy circle, and he didn't refer it to empathy circle in any way. He was just naming genocide or Holocaust, another fuckery, and that sort of things he was saying. It's unacceptable for me. However, I agree that respecting only Holocaust, only Shoah, is ignoring genocides that happened around the world. I agree with that.
Okay, so I hear you saying that I maybe misunderstood or misshared with you, that I think I had this idea that that Roger was also speaking about the empathy circle, but you mentioned that and you corrected that he didn't actually reflect empathy circle. He mostly spoke about his ideas, and you still agree with him that replacing only Holocaust as a genocide is okay, I'm kind of lost there.
I think, okay, that's okay. I meant that respecting only victims of Holocaust is disrespecting all the victims of other genocides. We can't just focus on Holocaust because genocides happens around the world in many countries, and it happened for centuries of human history. A lot of genocides, a lot of mass murders, and we need to respect all of them. With full respect to Holocaust, we need to respect also other genocides. And that's my point of view.
Yeah, you are saying that the mass murders and Holocausts are all happening all around the world, and mass murders and genocides are happening all around the world, and the place you would like to be is that we all see them maybe as important as Holocaust, and maybe learn as we learn from Holocaust, because as far as I again like understand with the continuing of the conversation, there's a reason we know more about Holocaust, because it's mentioned at a lot of places, so it's out there more. And I hear your kind of like maybe cry out with that love and compassion that you wish that we knew about other genocides than Holocaust more?
Well, I didn't say that, but yes, it's logical consequence of what I said, and yes, I agree with that. In that point, I agree with Roger Hallam. Yes, thank you. Thank you, I feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now it's your turn to choose somebody for reflecting you.
Yeah. Bill? Mhm.
Listening.
Yeah, about Roger's, when I heard about Roger's comments about Holocaust, I stopped and think, and I felt relieved, and almost you can never be happy about a genocide, but I realized like I was happy with the idea that I know and I care about Holocaust. So with his conversations and comments, it made me again realize that I know about it. And after listening to him a little bit more, I started asking this question to myself, like, why is Holocaust the only genocide that I know this much when there are a lot of genocides all around the world? So I couldn't stop asking that question to myself.
Okay. So you were, you don't mean to say that you're happy about any kind of sort of genocide, but what you did find is that this was an opportunity for growth for you. When Roger Hallam's, words, first of all, you were happy with yourself that you do know about the Holocaust and you do care about it. And then as you thought further, you said, yes, and I should care about other genocides as well. And why don't I know them? And so there's a question about why aren't we educated about all the genocides that go on, and then trying to deal with those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And continuing, it's a big hope for me that we are talking about this, and I would really like to again see how we know about Holocaust this much, because there is a big effort, and this effort is all happening by people's heart. Nobody came out with a rule saying, okay, it's our mission to talk about Holocaust. We didn't come here like this. It was about the stories of hearts and people when they wanted to share about it. So it's coming from a real heartfelt place when people want to share about their stories. And I am again hoping that we have the chance to really understand and empathize with all other mass murders or holocausts in the history or currently in the world as we can about Holocaust.
Okay. So first of all, you said that in your experience in learning about the Holocaust, there are it's a lot of personal stories. Each suffering is individual, and that's for you a much more fruitful way to understand about the Holocaust than just simply trying to consider mass political movements or anything like that. And then you would like to apply that logic or that experience and that growth towards other genocides and start to understand them and learn how to, I assume, avoid them.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I think I have this dream that like aftermath of Holocaust and how we know about it and how it really affects the people who are connected, everything that's happening, like the movies, the knowledge, the information, the books, how it's helping the next generation of the Holocaust people. I admire that, and I wish that for the next generations of all social traumas like that. So I think there's a big healing about Holocaust that is about the next generation of the souls who had to experience that.
Okay. So you're saying that you really appreciate the dialogue and conversation about the Holocaust that's gone on as a way to process the grief and the pain that not only the Holocaust survivors, but also that their sons and daughters and the generations are. So it's a way to start the healing process, and you're appreciative of that.
Yeah, and I wish the same, almost same healing for all next generations of the Holocaust survivors too.
Right, yeah. And you make sure, that the healing goes on for generations because the pain goes on for generations.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard, Bill.
Okay, great, sure. All right, Kevin, will you listen to me? Okay, thanks. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Let's see. I agree. I happen to have heard some Holocaust stories from survivors. It's a great privilege. And what I learned, beside the particular story, is that how individual it is, how painful it is, in all sorts of, unexpected ways. So I don't agree with Roger Hallam's words. I agree with what you said, Kevin, about, well, we've got to be able to talk about this and then put this into context. We need to talk about other genocides. And I certainly agree with that. But when we do, like, if we talked about the Trail of Tears as another, fuckery, I think that kind of gives short shrift to the grandmothers and children and babies who had to walk 1,000 miles under armed guards. So let's talk about genocide, but let's talk about all genocides, but let's all give them all respect. And I'll stop there.
I heard you say, Bill, that you agree that the discussions about Holocaust are important, and you understand by experience that the Holocaust is a very personal experience by survivors and people that are accepting the stories of survivors or the history itself. But I also hear you say that to call it to boil it down as call it a fuckery is a disrespect to the people that have gone through it, I guess. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Kevin. That's great. And then that being said, I don't agree with people who kind of just want to cross Roger Hallam off their list or just not talk to him, because essentially we have a species-threatening situation, both politically and environmentally, and it's going to take us all working together. And the more, and so we have to find some common goals and comedy. And so just generally, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to misstate. They're going to, I assume that this was in furtherance of selling, his book. So he might have made a personal decision that instead of a more community decision. But I think we need to stay in conversation with everyone. We need to, people should be able to find a way to for redemption. I'll stop there. That's a lot. For your first day.
Yeah.
So feel free to ask me to summarize things.
I think, Bill, I'm hearing you say that you agree with Roger Hallam's, I guess, stand to bring it to say it, to bring it to the focus. Mm-hmm. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, he didn't do it right. No. I mean, if he really wanted to do it by just dismissing it, he doesn't bring the honor to the genocide or Shoah or to any other genocide. And that's what I'm saying. We should bring honor to all of them.
Yes. I hear you say, Bill, that it's important that it's all talked about in context. Yeah.
And the other part I just wanted to say is that, and he shouldn't be, canceled or crossed off, hey, I disagree with you, but we still have this problem here. Let's try to work together and solve it. And then I'm done.
So I hear you say, Bill, that he should, as much as what he said has been received by people, he shouldn't be necessarily thrown out of the movement, mm-hmm. Based on the fact that he said some things that were sensitive and perhaps maybe unable to put them in the context, or unable to further develop maybe that his thoughts because of how quickly he was piled upon. Did I hear you say that, or am I projecting a bit there?
You're projecting a little bit. I don't know about, because I wasn't really quite how much he's piled upon, but certainly I think that his words are not equivalent to negating him or shunning him. A shunning. I don't believe in a shunning. Empathy circles are not about shunning. That's all.
I hear you say, yeah. I hear you say, Bill, that as much as what he said is put him where he is right now, it's not necessary to shun him out of the movement.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Kevin. I feel fully heard. That wasn't easy.
So how's that?
You select who you want to speak to, Kevin, like Bill or Carolina or Eva or me, or whoever.
Now, and for me to do that, am I allowed to clarify some of my position, I guess, right?
You can say anything you want.
Let's, Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Carolina, in the context of, I'm glad that we brought that back. Also, Bill brought that back to say that, we are in this climate crisis. And I think that's the kind of the important thing, and maybe why I believe that, the words that Roger chose were dismissive, were provocative, were challenging. And I wonder whether or not, given the context, given the context of trying to move global consciousness and how to continue to grow XR momentum in third world countries around the world, I can't imagine that how, I don't want to believe that it's because of selling a book. I think that it's beyond just saying something provocative to sell a book. I I want to believe, or I feel that in the context of XR, in the context of the climate crisis, and like 3 or 4 years of what's XR is potentially gonna grow to make significant changes. Like, I almost wonder if it doesn't take this type of provocation to shake people's ears, to shake people into understanding that by, we all need to look at things in the context of we're all in this thing kind of together. And
Mhm.
and if
Can
I
I? Can I
yes,
try?
yes,
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I will try. So you are glad that that Bill and brought up the climate crisis back, and you believe you don't believe that Roger Hallam said what he said because of books promotion. You believe that he did it because he felt like he need to shake common consciousness around the world, kind of trigger uh, publicity around what he's saying to kind of draw attention of the publicity to the third world, to the developing countries, and to all what's happening there. And maybe concerning considering the circumstances and of the climate catastrophe, it's the only way to shock and to shake the consciousness, the social consciousness. That's what you mean?
Yes, I'm feeling heard on that. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Am I able to just go one little bit further?
Yes, of course.
I've recently been talking about the Overton window, and very quickly, the Overton window is how people move in large populations towards changing policy. And I use references like slavery, women's rights, animal cruelty, and now the climate crisis. They're all significant Overton windows. And these Overton windows, if you look at them individually, they have forces that push against them. And those forces are primarily greed and fear. And I believe that as policy, as consciousness starts to move, to shift the Overton window, those forces of greed and fear push against the window to stop change. Because to make change, it's going to cost money, or it's going to cost something that they fear to lose. So as social consciousness rises to make these changes in policy, those forces are fighting against it all the time. And I think it's the same thing with Hallam, as how quickly he got shut down, is to stop social awareness, to stop conscious awareness.
Okay. So you recalling the term of Overton window, which is a state of social consciousness that absorb new ideas, so to speak, and certain ideas can be accepted, and there are ideas that are not acceptable by common sense, common social consciousness. And you think, if I understand you correctly, you mentioned two forces, force of greed and force of fear. That are against uh, absorbing the idea of climate catastrophe and need for change. So you didn't name who are those forces of greed and fear, but you feel like those forces are pushing Overton window this ability of understanding the danger back to the situation when it will be kind of lost. So is that what you mean? And they are, oh, okay. And Roger Hallam is trying to actually do opposite thing, to open this, so to speak, Overton window.
Yes.
For some idea.
Yes, yes, Carolina. Thank you. I will summarize. Yes, that Roger Hallam, XR, Greta Thunberg, we are all pushing the Overton window towards change. We want change. We need preparation. We want to change. But what the forces against the change is greed and fear, and they're pushing against us because for us to attack the climate, it's going to take monumental shifts of wealth and strategy and consciousness, all these things that need to change. Greed is pushing against us because it's going to cost them money. And I believe that, that the statements that Roger made is aggressive statements to push the window, to push people to think about this in its overall context, back to the climate.
Okay, so you kind of emphasizing the what you just said, that Roger Hallam, as well as other people like Greta Thunberg and other great activists, all they try to push this Overton window into direction that help everyone understand the problem and the danger and the need for change. But so-called forces of greed and fear are not interested in such a change, so they push it back, and that's why Roger Hallam faced such great resistance and was called out.
That was 5 minutes too. Just want to make a note.
Thank you very much, Carolina. That is, you've heard me wonderfully and you've explained it way better than I could have myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I will choose maybe Edwin now.
Listening.
Yeah, it's very interesting what Kevin is saying. I might agree with all of that, but still can't accept the language Roger Hallam is using, and I don't believe that shaking social consciousness requires unrespecting somebody.
So you have you have agreement with what Kevin is saying, but still that as of using sort of that language is just disrespectful, and you just can't agree, on that part. Still an issue for you.
Yeah, I believe, I don't believe that Roger Hallam doesn't respect. It's hard to believe that. I'm tending to believe that he is full of respect to the Holocaust victims, but there is too much manipulation in it for me. I believe it could be done different way.
Mm-hmm. So you just don't feel good about how it was done. You feel it was manipulative and it could have been done in a better way.
Yeah. And I don't accept, from the other side, I don't accept kind of, as you're saying, calling him out and not giving him a chance to talk, to explain himself. That's unacceptable for me because it doesn't resolve the problem. It doesn't help all of us to become better people, better humans, and better community. It's just banning somebody. It doesn't make us better.
Mm-hmm. So you also don't like how he was called out, and because it's not constructive and it's not making things better, and you would really like to have a more constructive way forward.
I would say not things, I would say us humans, us activists, us community. We don't work on our community, we just focus on banning Roger Hallam. That's not what I would expect.
Mm-hmm. So as activists, you just wouldn't expect we just start banning it, that it's just not a good way to just be banning people, and it's not what you expect from sort of the movement.
Yeah, and it should be a part of regenerative culture that we accept that everybody, no matter how big figure, uh, can do mistakes and and should have a chance to explain him or herself or changing mind. I don't know. I just would like to hear Roger Hallam and discuss with him.
Mm-hmm. So you want everyone, you just say everyone can make a mistake, and you like to hear from him and sort of talk about it and talk it out and understand where he's coming from. And that's sort of like an attitude you'd like for the whole movement as well.
Yeah, and maybe I will change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, so if you could hear him,
yeah.
if you could hear him and see why he did what he did, you might even change your mind and have more understanding and even agreement with him.
Now it's difficult to imagine that, but I feel like I need to prepare for such possibility. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to listen to each other if I'm not ready to change my mind.
Yes, you have to have some openness. You want to have openness yourself and be open to change, and maybe have that be part of the movement too.
Yeah. I believe the empathic circle with Roger Hallam could be amazing things when we would discuss and try to reflect each other and trying to understand why he did it or why I, for example, believe that it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It could be great thing.
Yes, it'd be a great thing if actually Roger was in this empathy circle or in an empathy circle in general, and because then you could really hear why he said what he did, and it'd be just like sort of a positive thing, a great thing actually, just to have that. Yeah.
And we could reconstruct the community, the XR activist community on the new level when we understand each other much better. That's what I would like to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So by having that dialogue, it would take the whole movement to a different level, to a better, more constructive level. And that's what maybe you feel excited about and hopeful about.
Yeah. That's why it is so difficult seeing the explanation of the whole situation and some statements Roger Hallam made. I understand that he's a okay, I see my time is up. spokesman for our movement. But maybe I will tell it about in next round
Okay,
about
so,
the relation between him and other other activists.
so you have a lot more to say, but you're going to wait for your next turn
Yeah,
to
yeah,
continue.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Eva, can I speak to you? Oh, let's see me unmute you. There you go.
Edwin, I have to say, like, you make this thing look very easy. The way you reflect, oh my goodness. So
Yeah, so you're really appreciating my reflection of this.
there again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll speak to you. Yeah, in terms of the reflection, it's just practice. People start where they start, but if you just keep doing this over and over again, you just get better and better at it. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is just teach people this skill, and it's a learned skill and a certain and mindset. So yeah. You want to
Can I
reflect
try
that back?
with that?
Yeah, please.
So I hear you say empathy circle way of thinking is a practice. You start and then you continue practicing, and the way you are doing this with maybe even with different subject is trying to teach this to people who are interested.
And one thing, just sort of a tip, is to look for the feeling that the person has. It's like, what is the person who's speaking? What is it that they're feeling? And try to name that too. That can help sort of deepen the listening and the reflection.
Okay. Just a minute.
Right.
And I hear you adding, there's you sharing a tip of trying to follow up and catch the feeling the person is sharing, and name the feeling and deepen the feeling to reflect on what that person is sharing.
Yeah. And so, exactly. And so I'll go back to what Carolina was saying about, that's really what I've been sort of pushing for, is that Roger would take part in an empathy circle like this with maybe someone from XR Germany, XR Jews, and maybe one other person, a facilitator. And I really agree, with Carolina that would be a very constructive step forward, and it would be recorded just like we're doing here. I think it would do a lot for, creating more healing and understanding. So I'm also very hopeful about that.
I hear you saying that you agree with Caroline on having Roger at an empathy circle like this with different with participants from different diverse backgrounds, I hear you saying you believe this will continue to be as like a step forward on healing and understanding on what Roger have said and its effects on the communities.
Yeah, and I feel a sense of hope if we could do that. That's really that quality of hopefulness, that feeling of hopefulness that I have.
Yeah. And I hear you say that you feel sense of hope on doing that.
Yeah, and I also feel, because I'm not seeing it happen, I feel a little discouragement. Because it seems to be really hard to kind of get something like that to happen. It takes so much work. So I feel a little frustrated, it's a lot, yeah.
And I hear you a little frustrated, and you have hope, but you don't want to give up on that hope, but there are you have some reasons that you are frustrated and you don't want to lose your hope. That's what I hear with the feeling.
I have frustration and hope.
You have frustration and hope. That was easy.
Yeah. So,
thank you, Edwin.
Yeah, let me see. There's, I don't know. I feel fully heard. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. This was easy. Thank you. So do I get
now
to...
you choose someone. You've got 5 minutes to whoever you want to speak to.
Okay, so can I choose you back, Edwin?
Yes, you can.
This has been very insightful and hopeful for me to talk about Roger and his perspective and his effect on what is happening. I am again hopeful that we are still talking and hoping that we can still give Roger a way to join an empathy circle like this, that we still want to again hear him again, and reflect on what he really wants to say.
Mm-hmm. So you're feeling some hope because we all here would like to hear what he has to say and to reflect on what he has to say, and that just gives you hope, because I guess it's going in a positive direction for you.
Yeah. And again, being in a circle like this and being in a very early learning stage of the empathy circle way like this, I hope and wish that we could be discussing, and more people would be discussing all different kinds of stuff around the world. Not everything has to be happening with a lot of people as to be called movements. It could be a movement of heart and feelings, and things could happen in circles, maybe even small circles like this one.
So you see that a movement can be built in small circles like this one. It doesn't have to be some big thing. It can be done in small circles.
Yeah.
For movement building.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there more?
I think that's enough for today.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Kevin. Oh, let me just unmute you here. So let's see, where am I? Yeah, I loved your hat. I'm just imagining how cold it must be there. Here we are in California, and no snow, and and I just really enjoyed seeing that hat. You want to reflect that?
I hear that you said, Edwin, that you like my hat.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
How's that?
Oh, no, okay, good. So, yeah, I guess in terms of bringing this practice into XR, the actual practice itself, once people get into it, I feel it's very constructive. And what's so time consuming is the setting up of it, the scheduling, the getting people involved. So it's so much work to, kind of get it going. So I guess I just want to, that's the sort of the hard thing, is all the logistics of creating empathy circles.
I hear you saying, Edwin, that the logistics of having, as important as these circles are, the logistics and the work to put them together is sometimes can be a lot of work.
Yeah, I think that's one reason I would like to have Roger take part in an empathy circle like this, is as someone with such a high profile, not only would he be talking, there'd be this dialogue, but with the empathy circle, if you watch an empathy circle, recording of it, you also learn by observation. So it would actually be a very good teaching practice. It would be a high-profile teaching for the whole movement. People would learn the practice just by observing it.
So Edwin, I'm hearing you say of how much of an advantage it might be to have Roger in a speaking circle like this because of his high profile, that we could actually be able to probably get other people to look at it as well, to go through, to watch it, even though they aren't partaking in it, but to watch it, to be able to get a fuller understanding of how Roger answers the questions in this type of format.
As well as that they would, by observing it, then you say, oh, I see how to do an empathy circle, and they can go do one in their own communities, because that's what I'm really looking at, is spreading it, getting it to go viral. And so I guess I keep thinking sort of in those terms.
So Edwin, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that you like the context and the benefits of an empathy circle, and your passion is to try and replicate these circles in other groups for other purposes all around the world within the movement.
Yeah, so it's really, I would love to see, like I would mention again, I'll say it again, XR, everyone, empathy circle facilitator, right? That everyone has the skills, that if a conflict starts, even if there's no conflict, just for building connection with each other in a local group, that, you know, it's good for just building connection, understanding, everyone being heard, as well as it's a tool for conflict resolution. So seems to me this, you know, it could be widely spread, and it would just have a positive, you know, positive aspect, you know, quality, add a positive quality to the movement.
So Edwin, I hear you saying that, you know, in terms of the context of how these circles, these empathy circles are done, you see that as kind of foundational, as to you could be quite a catalyst moving forward, given that this was one of the chosen types of exercises that would be taken up by people within the movement.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Now it's my turn, right?
Yep, and you select whoever you'd like.
Oh, I don't even know where we are now.
I think Bill didn't reflecting and speaking for quite long.
So Bill, would you care to listen?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Kevin.
Do you think, I don't know whether or not this isn't really a question, I guess, is does the context of, like, if the word Holocaust is removed, and if we were to be talking about these amazing tragedies as genocide, and they're all genocides, and does that, you know, is it the fact that the World War II Holocaust is kind of one of the only times we use Holocaust in the vernacular? The other one would be Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but those are the only times we call them, we say the words Holocaust, versus, you know, the fact that genocides continue. And I wonder, like, is that the one of the elements that creates it, makes it so sensitive right off the bat? It's one thing that comes to my mind. And the other thing is, in the context of the Canadian Indigenous and the American Indigenous and Palestine BDS, like, how quickly that discussion gets shut down? Does it obscure the fact that, you know, it's still, again, today, you know, I always ask, you know, looking at the Canadian Indigenous situation, would we be standing by today allowing that similar, you know, allowing things happening to Canadian Indigenous as in the same context of what we watch happen today in Palestine?
Okay.
And that's probably terrible, Bill. Good luck with that. Sorry.
It's all right. You can correct me. It's about building a bridge. And so, you know, um, you were talking about looking at genocides, you know, throughout history, and that the only time we've called genocides holocausts are both in the atomic bomb and also World War II, the killing of the Jews. And you're wondering if that term Holocaust somehow, you know, changes the rules of how we talk about it when we talk about a Holocaust, or whether we can talk about another Holocaust because of people's personal feelings. And then you wanted to also talk about the genocide that happened in indigenous peoples, both in America and Canada. And you're wondering that if we were back at the time when, you know, that these were occurring, what we would say about that, and would we be able to stop that?
Yes, I'm heard.
Okay. You got more time.
Again, I just have to, the only thing I can add to that is
Mm-hmm.
you know, I look at Roger Hallam on one hand and Gail Bradbrook on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall very quickly that story that they said from the original Five Bridges, where Roger was not going to be the one that's going to be the outreach guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that was a bit on the rebel side, and Gail stepped into the liaison and the outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the masculine and the feminine within those two people and at the core of XR. And again, Roger needing or wanting XR to grow internationally. You know, I again, how he chose to do it, and I agree with Carolina on the words and how he chose to use those words. However, again, back in the context of you know, is it even possible to internationally move mass amounts of people up the spiral dynamics in time for us to save mankind? Again, how else do you put that type of thing in context?
Okay. So you were talking about Roger and with Gail, and you were talking about how Roger was more the rebel and Gail did more of the outreach. And you were also, you know, talking about Gail being sort of like the yin and yang, the male and female aspect, and things like that. And then you're bringing that and really kind of questioning how that little piece fits into the whole, you know, scheme of trying to save humanity from climate change. Like, what do you have to do in order to move mass amounts of people's, you know, ideas?
Yes, Bill. Thank you. You did, again, better than I did.
That's right. Okay. All right. I'll talk to Carolina.
I'm listening.
Well, I think, you know, I think that we build that, or we deal with that by doing things like this, like the circle, where we build community and respect and listening to each other. So I'll stop there.
You saying that we build it by doing empathy circles and practicing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but you said we build it.
I'm building a culture of empathy, or in this context, an XR, a world where democracy is reinvigorated and we're effectively dealing with climate change.
Okay, so you mean that we build the culture of empathy and the civilization that is able to to cope with climate crisis, climate catastrophe by doing empathy circles and practicing such things like empathy circles.
Right. And although I do believe that sometimes things need shaking up, and I sit in suspended judgment. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I were to do something outrageous and that could save humanity, maybe I'd consider it. But if I were to do something outrageous, I'm not saying comparing myself to Roger Hallam or what he did, but just if you were going to do something very radical, and if you knew, okay, if I do this, it'll save humanity. So you make one decision, but the fact is that if you do something, it probably won't make any difference, then, that's another calculation. So I think that it's best to create the kind of culture that we want by demonstrating it through empathy circles and other means, and kindness.
So if I understand you correctly, you mean that probably you don't put in the same line yourself and Roger, but if you would be in a situation of saving humanity, you would probably think about shaking somehow social consciousness in such a drastic way. But actually you prefer to do it by modeling different culture, different relations, and different speaking.
Right. Because we were all affected and changed by our experience. And so, and what history has taught us, that the more extreme situations we get into, the more radical, and not radical left or right or political, but the more extreme we become.
So you're noticing that the more radical and extreme situation we face, the more radical and extreme we become. But still you believe in more that we learn through experience, and it should be kind of positive experience.
Right, I do. And that comes from my work as a special education teacher, where I had students who were were taught and told that they were terrible and that they were in bad circumstances. And and they'd been punished enough. And so it was time to basically listen to them and show them more, pro-social, functional ways of dealing with things.
Okay, so you're talking from your experience as a special
Education teacher.
Special education teacher, and you have experience with working with youth that was sort of marginalized and told that they are awful, they are bad, and you were changing that experience into something positive.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Well, I tried, yes, and when I could effectively communicate and listen to them, it did work. They were better.
So you have your personal experience that listening to such people, to such young people, was positively affecting them. If it worked, you have a chance to do that, it always worked.
Yeah. Thank you, Carolina. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Who didn't speak for a while? Maybe Eva.
Or am I listening or am I speaking?
Yeah. Would you listen to me?
Okay. I'm happy to listen to you, Carolina.
Okay. I'm thinking about this situation between Roger Hallam and other activists, and the rule of Extinction Rebellion movement, which is horizontal structure, horizontal organization without leaders, with specific rules we follow, but there is no any strong structure. Everything is sort of liquid. I stop there.
Mm-hmm. I hear you saying you find as like the rule of XR movement as like a horizontal movement without a leader. You find that there's no strong structure.
Yeah.
And again, I hear you saying you were thinking about this in the perspective of Roger and other activists, how things are liquidish and as like a horizontal organization without a leader, how things are shaping in a unique way, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean that the structure is very liquid. This is one of the principles that we don't have strong vertical structure at all. We have only horizontal, similar to so-called holacracy system of circles, different work groups, different affinity groups. And every activist is equal. There is no activists who are more important than others. Obviously, Roger Hallam or Gail Bradbrook or others, co-founders, are more well known. They are famous, and they pay sort of part of being a spokesman or spokeswoman for movement. But still, if we respect the basics of our movement, I am equal with them, and every other activist is equal with them.
Yeah, I hear you say, just because some of the activists are maybe because of their unique reasons, again, maybe they some of the activists are maybe known more. It doesn't mean that they are more important. And
Yeah.
I hear you look at people who choose to be activists as like different circles of different ideas. And just because the structure of activism is maybe more liquid, it doesn't make anybody, including you, less important. You are as important, and your activism is as important as any other activists, including Roger.
Yeah. The thing is, he behaved like he was on the top.
Can you
And
repeat that? I didn't get
that. He behaved like he's on the top, like he's on the top of the vertical structure. And I have problem with that. Maybe I don't read his intentions, but it looks like he put himself on the top of some kind of vertical structure. I have problem with that.
I hear you have problem with that, with Roger's maybe behaviors or this last sharings, that you have a feeling that he looks like to be on top of a vertical movement. You have a problem with that because of your own reasons, should I say?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because I believe it's kind of breaking the basics of our movement, this holacracy. Okay, I see time is up. This situation is kind of breaking the fundamental rule of our movement. We are equal, we are horizontal, and we should respect each other. Whatever we do, we should understand that we affect others with our behavior.
I hear you say you believe that we affect each other, each activist affect each other. And again, I hear you saying, Rogers, this kind of activism is against the holacracy perspective of activism that we support, maybe in empathy circle.
No,
or maybe common sense, let's say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Your turn now. Thank you.
Okay. I was always, okay, first I choose Kevin.
I'm listening.
Okay. Hi, neighbor.
Yes.
I always had the empathy for people or groups of people who had to go through problems. And with my personal experience these last years, because I'm from Turkey and think Turkey has a lot of background, ethnical background, groups of people, and things have been happening and have been happened in that geography for a very long time. But with all this perspective of what's happening nowadays in Turkey, about journalists or families like children, I find myself being even more sensitive, and that scares me, because I wish I was more sensitive before I experience it in my motherland. So that's scary for me.
Eva, that's very difficult for me to comment on that. I think I'm hearing that your experience being from Turkey has you fearful of yeah. I'm sorry, Eva. I have to ask for you to summarize, dear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to really point to the view that how I experience in myself that I feel more familiar and more caring about genocides, because I was able to really witness or see what's happening in my motherland in this last couple of maybe years, I would say.
I hear you saying that because of your experience and what you about the unrest in Turkey, that you're more sensitive to these to atrocities based on that you've seen them.
And my main point that really scares me is that I should be caring before. I should be worrying about things before I witness by first hand. That scares me.
I hear you saying that you're not knowing before it scares you because essentially that information like was kept from you in a way, I guess, right? In that is that correct, Eva?
Not quite.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe I was rushing about the information. It's like my sensitivity about genocides is higher now because I got it. It affected me, and it scares me because what if it's the same thing for many people around the world? They are not affected by any genocides now, and are they not able to really understand what's happening because they never was affected by a genocide?
So I hear you saying that because I hear you saying that because of not talking about it makes it more hard for other people to learn, because if we're unable to speak about it, that is what you're afraid of, is that other people cannot learn without having to see it themselves.
Yeah, we can say that too. I think our time is up now. Thank you, Kevin. I mean, I hear you. I didn't really give you too brief explanation. Thank you. That's inside there too. I appreciate that, Kevin. Thanks.
I feel I'm my first kick at the can here. I don't think I'm doing a great job.
Oh, you are definitely better than my first time. Trust me. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. I think I wanted just to touch back and maybe talk to Bill. Bill, if you could hear me, sir.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
You know, I should have made notes when you were speaking, but the one thing that came to my mind in talking about you know, Roger Hallam and saying what he said, and it's what popped in my mind is self-immolation, right? And at what point, like, are we not at what point do we not see that in terms of how to deliver the message, right? Like, was Roger's discretion, or did he was it self-immolation minus the matches,
So you're saying that as far as my point earlier is like, how radical, what should you do, how radical should you get? You kind of looked at and thought that a metaphor might be self-immolation, in that Roger Hallam made these comments in order to provoke talk and to bring these things up, and was unconcerned with what the reaction to him personally might be.
And yes, and almost, has it been effective? My question is, has it been effective? That did he, is that, effective minus, of course, the next step. And if in 10 years, 20 years from now, when the catastrophes around us are way more prevalent, is that what's going to be necessary to get that same reaction in the future? Is it going to be necessary to have to set ourselves on fire to get the same reaction that Hallam got out of trying to preemptively get everyone to that level of consciousness.
Okay. So you're wondering that, again, how, provocative or extreme should one be, and what are the results? And you're thinking about 10 years down the line when things are much worse and we haven't done anything about them, and whether those more extreme, tactics might be appropriate then. Or also the other thing I was getting is that not having used them now, if Roger hadn't done it, he's trying to get the ball rolling now to try to, get people talking about it in the future.
Yes, yes, I'm being heard. And just one other statement, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Turkey,
Mm-hmm.
just today or yesterday, has recognized American genocide of the indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
And brought that to the world stage. I know, and it's linked to the Americans calling out the Armenian genocide,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like the Americans, blaming somebody else for something that, and hiding the fact that they themselves are also have also committed such genocide. I just wanted to, pop that in there as being current affairs, I guess.
Sure. So you also want to recognize that because the Americans have talked about, called out Turkey for the Armenian genocide, Turkey just today called out the United States for the indigenous peoples genocide.
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard. I've been heard. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, sure, Kevin. Okay, I'll talk to Edwin.
Listening.
Okay. So some interesting things. And one thing that Eva said, that I heard, was that, because she's Turkish and she's been touched by the genocide and stuff, she's aware of it. But what she was afraid of is that, how many other genocides that don't directly affect her is she not aware of? And then also talking about the whole rest of humanity, how are we going around, and we should know about these things, and we should and try to do something about them. I'll stop.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going back to what Eva was saying and sort of recounting what you understood that she was saying, that if you're not, that being aware, having the experience of something like a genocide makes you more sensitive, and some disappointment that if you're haven't experienced it yourself, that you're sort of not aware of it, and just sort of recounting what you heard her say.
Right, and that's what I think she was trying to say, that she was afraid of, is that there are a lot of people who are just not aware, and how to make more people aware. But also I heard her take very beautifully, I thought, personal responsibility for educating herself about these things.
Mm-hmm. So it's just people who aren't aware of this, and how do you educate people and herself about sort of an awareness of these issues, of these different murders, mass murders, genocides.
Yeah, and misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors. High crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah. And I think that's essentially the root of what we need to do, is to treat ourselves with compassion and empathy, but also realize that we're flawed human beings. And if we're going to really do something about this, we're going to have to grow and improve ourselves.
So you really want us to cut some slack, not just be self-judgmental, and kind of have some understanding, but then also have an attitude of growth. Right.
And and that as we go through this and we work together, we will not be the same people that we started out as. And that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. And through this growth, we change and we become sort of new people, and that's a positive thing.
That's right. And I think that goes back to Kevin's mention of the Overton window, in the sense that as we change and role model it, that affects other people without necessarily being threatening. and helps them change as well, see that there's a way to go.
Mm-hmm. And a way to move the Overton window is to sort of model it, and that's not so threatening to people.
Great. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Speak to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
I guess I want to talk about what you had said about leadership, and I do see holacracy as not being leaderless but leaderful. So it's really that someone can take the lead on it. You see a need, and then you can take leadership and to start addressing that need within the context of the organization's goals.
So you interpreting holacracy as a form of organization that is not without leaders, but actually opposite. Everyone is a leader of anything he or she takes as an action, any task he or she takes,
Yeah.
and act.
Mm-hmm.
Become a leader of it.
You can become a leader. You see a need, and then you just form a group and start, addressing that need within the context of the organization's goals and principles.
So everyone is, if anybody see any needs, they can just take action, organize group of people around the task, and take a leadership on this task according to the rules of the movement.
Yeah, and I have some concerns about like the political left likes to say, oh, there's no leaders. And there is always leaders. So it all kind of happens, subtly and behind the scenes. And you try to tear down leaders, and it seems like a big mess. And I think it's just healthier just to say there are leaders, and it's and then you don't have all that secret leadership stuff happening in the background, people pretending there's no leadership. So
okay, so you think that talking about lack of leaders is misunderstanding and misleading the whole situation, when actually there is the whole army of leaders, and everybody leads something, and they are acting in a background.
no, it's if sometimes I see in the political left say there's no leaders here, right? We do Occupy Wall Street, whatever, nobody's a leader. But there are really people who are sort of leading it, but they do it subtly and underhandedly and not openly and transparently. So okay. I think it's better to say there is leadership and be clear how it works, though,
So you're referring not just to the XR movement, but in general to many movements you're observing that there are actions, for example, street actions, protests, whatever, and if everybody says that there is no leader, but they are actually there, and it would be more transparent and more honest and authentic if they would act openly as leaders, without pretending that they are not.
Exactly. And and then I do see, in terms of equality, I'm just thinking, I guess I think about leadership and empathy, that I'm kind of trying to tie a culture of empathy into leadership, that so I don't quite know what the relationship is, but I'm sort of just sitting with that question of, well, what's the relationship of empathy and leadership?
So you start thinking about the relationship between leadership and empathy. It's like a new task, new topic for you to explore what it is, what is the relation between those two.
Yeah, and equality too. It's like, because that's what you're bringing up, that people have different, like Roger and Gail definitely have a lot more influence than any of us do. So there is something about a level of influence. There's people who have different handles on the levers of the organization, and they have a lot more influence because they maybe manage the XR website or the XR, so they control, you know, who gets posted there, what gets posted. And so there is, you know, in terms of about equality, there's, you know, there's not that equality of access to those levers of power. So I'm just sitting with I'm just kind of, I don't really know where I'm going with it. I'm just kind of thinking about these things.
So you're thinking aloud about another thing I mentioned is equality. Equality. Yeah, equality.
Yeah.
Equality. That if we have equality of people of different rank that are differently sort of famous, let's say, there is always kind of inequality between them, and always those people who are higher rank have more influence and have more control over what's happening in a movement. So we shouldn't, as I understand what you're saying, we shouldn't pretend that there is no
Yeah.
there is equality.
Yeah,
And you're thinking aloud. You don't have
yeah.
clear vision of it. You're just thinking aloud.
Exactly. I feel fully heard. That was my time too.
Thank you. I suppose it's time for us.
Wow. Yeah, I just see that. So we have about 11 minutes according to my time here. And so maybe I'll stop the recording and just do sort of a debrief of maybe what, you know, so we can harvest some of the positive benefits of an empathy circle, go around and like, what do you enjoy, what, you know, or like, you know, in terms of the empathy circle? Let me